Americans marched, fought, and died to secure their right to vote. But today, that right is being threatened by cynical politicians who would rather choose their voters than let their voters choose them. In just the first 6 months of this year, legislators in 47 states have proposed over 360 bills to suppress the right to vote, and several of these bills have already passed and been signed into law. Now, voter suppression isn't new, but in recent years, our defenses against it have been weakened. To understand what we can do about it, we first need to go back 56 years. In 1965, Congress passed and President Johnson signed into law the Voting Rights Act, which sought to make real the 15th Amendment's promise of the right to vote for all citizens. Included in the Voting Rights Act was a procedure called Preclearance. It required states, counties, and other local jurisdictions with a history of voter discrimination to submit any changes to their election laws or procedures to the United States Department of Justice or to a federal court for pre-approval. These jurisdictions would have to prove that their proposed change would not have a discriminatory effect before it could be implemented. For nearly 50 years, this preclearance requirement blocked hundreds of discriminatory measures from taking effect in states covered by the requirement. But then, in 2013, the Supreme Court gutted the preclearance requirement on a 5-4 vote in a case called Shelby County v. Holder. That decision opened the floodgates for a new wave of discriminatory election laws. Jurisdictions that previously had to seek pre-approval for changes to their election laws immediately started passing restrictive voting bills that the Department of Justice or a court would otherwise have been able to block. They passed strict new voter ID laws that moved polling places in communities of color and purged eligible voters from the rolls. Put simply, they made it harder for eligible citizens to vote. And we continue to see these efforts today in previously covered states like Texas, Georgia, and Arizona, and more at the local level. We need a renewed Voting Rights Act to help prevent future voter suppression efforts of this kind. But a lot of damage has already been done, both in jurisdictions that were previously covered by the Voting Rights Act, as well as jurisdictions that weren't. That's why we need the For the People Act, which would set a federal baseline of voting rights in every state so that across the country, voters have equal opportunity to participate in their democracy. As the former Secretary of State of California, I served as the Chief Elections Officer for the most populous and the most diverse state in the nation. And I'm proud of California's leadership on voting rights. California has set the leading standards for both voting rights and election security. In California, voting is safe, secure, and easily accessible to all eligible voters. But every voter in every state deserves the same voting rights and opportunities. To protect our democracy nationwide, Congress needs to act now. We need to pass the For the People Act to reverse the attacks on voting rights that continue in states across the country. And we need to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act to prevent future attacks. We need both bills, not one or the other, both. Our democracy depends on it.